Welcome to Deep Dive America, the only channel that exposes the classified truths buried by governments, militaries, and shadow organizations. In our last episode, you saw how Operation Paperclip smuggled Nazi scientists into America under your nose. But what we're revealing today makes that look tame. October 1943. The USS Eldridge, a U.S. Navy destroyer, docked in Philadelphia for a routine experiment. But what happened next wasn't just classified, it was erased. Witnesses reported a blinding blue flash, and the 1,500-ton warship vanished from the harbor. When it reappeared minutes later, sailors were fused into bulkheads, others driven insane. The Navy called it mass hallucination, but leaked documents prove they knew exactly what happened. Was this Einstein's suppressed unified field theory in action? A secret World War II time travel program? Or something older and far more dangerous? Strap in, because we're not just uncovering a military secret. We're exposing the single most censored experiment in U.S. history. This is World War II's dirtiest secrets. And what you're about to learn changes everything. The Navy maintains that the Philadelphia experiment is nothing more than a sailor's drunken fantasy that spiraled into legend, but declassified documents and eyewitness accounts hint at something far more disturbing. In the heart of World War II, 1943 to be exact, the USS Eldridge was allegedly involved in a classified operation known as Project Rainbow, a top-secret military experiment aimed at rendering naval ships invisible to enemy radar. The science behind it? A radical application of Einstein's unified field theory, an ambitious attempt to bend light and electromagnetic waves around the ship, essentially cloaking it from sight. But if the accounts are to be believed, what was meant to be a breakthrough in stealth technology took a horrific turn. According to multiple leaked reports and testimonies during the test, the ship was engulfed in a strange greenish-blue mist before vanishing entirely from the Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. When it reappeared minutes later in Norfolk, Virginia, over 200 miles away, what was found defied all logic and reason. Crew members were embedded in the hull of the ship itself, fused into the metal as if caught mid-teleportation, their bodies broken, some still alive and screaming in agony. Others claim to have experienced what can only be described as hellish time distortions, babbling incoherently that they had lived for days or even weeks in another dimension where the laws of physics no longer applied. The Navy, faced with the horrific fallout, reportedly acted swiftly to bury the incident, erasing logs, threatening witnesses, and classifying everything under layers of secrecy. Yet the story refused to die. One man, physicist Morris Jessup, took a dangerous interest in the case after receiving strange letters and evidence from a man who claimed to have been there. Jessup believed he had stumbled upon the truth and was preparing to go public. But before he could, he was found dead in his car in what was officially ruled a suicide, though many insist he was silenced. A brilliant mind silenced to keep a terrifying secret buried beneath history's surface. Was this a daring leap into quantum physics, or just science fiction cloaked in secrecy? Einstein's obscure and unpublished notes on electromagnetic gravity hinted at an earth-shattering concept, that teleportation wasn't just fantasy, but scientifically feasible by bending space-time itself. The implications were enormous, and according to some accounts, the Navy seized upon this theory during wartime desperation. To bring it to life, they allegedly enlisted massive Tesla coils, generating immense electromagnetic fields around the USS Eldridge in an effort to cloak it from radar or perhaps even phase it out of physical space altogether. But according to insiders, what happened wasn't a mere stealth test gone awry. It was a catastrophic rupture in the fabric of reality. Reports from those involved claim the experiment didn't just make the ship invisible, it tore a hole through space-time. The consequences were horrifying. Some sailors were said to have aged several decades in mere seconds, their bodies unable to cope with the temporal dislocation. Others reportedly burst into flames without warning, victims of spontaneous combustion triggered by unstable energy fields. Even more disturbing are whispers of a 1955 CIA memo, now partially declassified, which acknowledges unexpected relocations of physical objects during experiments that eerily resembled the Philadelphia test. If true, it suggests the government had continued the research, despite the known risks. Were they tampering with forces far beyond human comprehension? Forces we were never meant to touch? And in the background of it all looms a chilling warning. Nikola Tesla, a visionary often credited with laying the groundwork for the project, is rumored to have cautioned the government to abandon their plans. He allegedly warned that they were on the verge of opening doors, dimensional or otherwise, that could never be closed again. If Tesla was right, the Philadelphia experiment wasn't just a failed military test. It was the moment humanity cracked open reality itself, and may have never fully closed it since. The few brave crewmen who dared to speak out about the Philadelphia experiment paid a terrible price. Carlos Allende, a merchant marine who later used the name Carl Allen, claimed he witnessed the USS Eldridge vanish not from Philadelphia but from Norfolk, Virginia, over 300 miles away before reappearing at its original location. His account added a disturbing new layer. The ship wasn't just cloaked or shifted slightly, it had teleported. According to various reports, crew members experienced horrors that defied reality. Some vanished into thin air during casual conversation, only to reappear moments later engulfed in flames, screaming in agony. Others suffered even stranger fates. One man, known only as Private Jensen, reportedly flickered in and out of visibility for several days. His body caught between dimensions, until he finally stabilized, partially fused into the bulkhead of the ship, his limbs embedded in cold steel. The Navy's official response to such incidents was to dismiss them as symptoms of combat fatigue, forcibly institutionalizing those who claimed to witness or survive the event. These were men who had served their country, silenced with psychiatric labels to keep the truth buried. But then came a chilling twist. In 1999, a radar technician made a deathbed confession. According to his statement, he had personally reviewed the Eldridge's logbook, and it confirmed the details of the experiment, the time, the date, and the impossible events that followed. Shortly afterward, the logbook was reportedly confiscated and locked away, deep within a Pentagon vault, never to be seen again. The implication was clear. The Navy knew. They had the proof, and they buried it. So the question remains, were these men simply broken by the trauma of war, their minds spiraling into delusion? Or had they witnessed something so far beyond human understanding that madness was the only possible response? Something perhaps not of this world, or not meant for it. The smoking guns may be buried, but they're far from gone. In 1969, a Freedom of Information Act request unearthed Navy memos that referenced optical distortion tests with documented lethal outcomes. These weren't routine radar exercises, they were experiments involving forces not fully understood. The memos described fatalities, physiological anomalies, and a growing fear that whatever had been triggered couldn't be controlled. The real shock came in a 1944 letter from President Franklin D. Roosevelt's own science advisor, urging total and permanent secrecy surrounding the side effects of a classified operation called Project Rainbow. The letter wasn't vague, it detailed concerns over unpredictable energy discharges, mental instability in test subjects, and unexplained shifts in physical matter. The government didn't shelve the project, they buried it. But in 2015, a retired officer from the Office of Naval Intelligence made a chilling off-the-record statement. He revealed that surviving crew members of the USS Eldridge had been quarantined, not for trauma, but for radiation burns, inconsistent with any known weapon. Some showed signs of cellular breakdown, similar to extreme exposure, yet no nuclear material had been used. The burns, he claimed, came from something else entirely, something they still couldn't explain. If that wasn't enough, reports surfaced linking the remnants of Project Rainbow to later experiments conducted at Montauk Air Force Station. These weren't simple tests. They involved time manipulation, teleportation, and psychological control. The overlaps are impossible to ignore, the timelines connect. The secrecy is identical. The human cost is undeniable. Whistleblowers described men lost in time, memories erased, objects appearing out of nowhere. Coincidence? Maybe once, but not this many times. This wasn't just about invisibility. It was about breaching the walls of reality itself and using that breach as a weapon. The question now isn't whether it happened. The question is, what did they bring back? The Philadelphia experiment remains one of the most violently protected secrets in U.S. military history. Decades later, the government still refuses to speak openly, and when it does, the denials come too fast, too polished, too rehearsed to feel real. Was it merely a failed physics experiment pushed too far by wartime desperation? Or was it something far more profound, a technological leap into time travel, teleportation, or even dimensions mankind was never meant to enter? Some researchers whisper that the science was only half the story. They claim strange rituals were performed aboard the USS Eldridge before the test, rituals eerily similar to occult practices, raising the chilling possibility that what occurred wasn't purely scientific, but something darker, older, something reaching beyond space and time. Eyewitnesses over the years have remained consistent, despite being silenced, ridiculed, and in some cases, institutionalized. Sailors spoke of being trapped in time, of walking through walls, of watching men scream as they disappeared or became fused to metal. These are not the delusions of madmen. They are shared, detailed accounts from multiple sources across decades. And then there are the documents, always denied but somehow always leaking. Technical diagrams, memos referencing Project Rainbow, letters urging permanent secrecy, and records that vanish once revealed. If the story was fake, why work so hard to erase it? If the experiment was a hoax, why are the Navy's records still sealed under national security laws? The closer one looks, the more undeniable the patterns become. Ships don't just vanish. Men don't just dissolve into steel. And yet, that's what the evidence describes. So the question is no longer whether the USS Eldridge teleported. All signs point to yes. The real question, the one no one dares to answer, is where it went and what followed it back. If this video shook your reality, smash the like button, subscribe to Deep Dive America, and share this with someone who needs to know the truth. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was this Einstein's greatest secret, or a nightmare the Navy once buried? And stay tuned for our next episode, where we expose the Battle of LA when the U.S. Army fired at a UFO, 1942. The night thousands saw something otherworldly, and the government still lies about it. This is Deep Dive America, uncovering the past they erased.